The Galactic Council had seen many species rise and fall over the millennia. They had witnessed civilizations that could bend reality with their minds, races that lived for thousands of years, and beings made of pure energy. But nothing had prepared them for the humans. Ambassador Zethkar of the Velconian Empire shifted uncomfortably in his crystalline seat as the emergency session began. The council chamber, a massive sphere floating in the void between galaxies, hummed with nervous energy. Representatives from over 300 species filled the amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, telepathic waves, and electromagnetic pulses. The situation on Kepler 442b has escalated beyond our initial projections, announced High Chancellor Mordan, her 8 arms gesturing dramatically as holographic displays materialized around the chamber. What began as a simple territorial dispute between the Zephyrian Collective and the Thrakkery Dominion has become something else entirely. The displays showed footage that made even the most battle-hardened species in the council chamber recoil. Entire cities reduced to molten glass. Orbital platforms torn apart like paper. Fleets of warships drifting as lifeless hulks in space. The humans, whispered Ambassador Quintel of the Ethereal Consortium, her translucent form flickering with distress. They deployed humans. A collective shudder ran through the chamber. Every species present knew the stories, though most had dismissed them as exaggerated tales meant to frighten younger generations. Humans were supposedly a recently discovered species from a small blue world on the galaxy's outer rim. They were young, technologically inferior, and should have been nothing more than a curiosity. The truth was far more terrifying. Show them the footage from the initial contact, ordered High Chancellor Mordan. The holographic display shifted, showing events from 6 months earlier. The Zephyrian Collective had been expanding aggressively into disputed space, using their superior technology and vast fleets to overwhelm smaller civilizations. The Thrakkery Dominion, ancient enemies of the Zephyrians, had responded with equal force. What should have been a localized conflict threatened to engulf half the galaxy in war. The Galactic Council had debated for weeks about intervention. Some species called for immediate action, while others preferred to let the two powers exhaust themselves fighting each other. It was then that the human delegation arrived. The humans had been granted membership in the Galactic Council only 2 years prior, much to the amusement of older civilizations. They came from Earth, a planet so unremarkable that most species had to check their star charts to remember where it was located. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. Their lifespans were laughably short. Their military consisted of projectile weapons and chemical rockets that belonged in a museum. Yet something about them had caught the attention of the Council's military advisors. "We can resolve this conflict," Human Ambassador Sarah Chun had announced during that fateful session. She was a small woman, barely reaching the chest of most other species representatives, but she spoke with absolute confidence. The Terran Defense Initiative has developed specialized units capable of rapid deployment and conflict resolution. The chamber had erupted in what passed for laughter among the various species present. The Velconian ambassador had been particularly vocal in his dismissal. "Your species has barely mastered interplanetary travel," Zethkar had said, his vertical pupils dilating with amusement. "What could you possibly offer that our combined fleets cannot accomplish?" Ambassador Chun had smiled then, an expression that several species later described as deeply unsettling in their reports. "We call them elite units," she had said simply. "They're highly trained specialists in warfare, survival, and problem-solving. Give us permission to deploy a single squad, and we will end this conflict within 1 standard galactic week." The arrogance had been breathtaking. A single squad of humans against 2 of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy? The Council had agreed, partly out of curiosity and partly out of cruel amusement. They wanted to watch these upstart humans be humbled. The footage showed the deployment ship approaching the contested system. It was a small craft, barely the size of a Zephyrian scout vessel. Intelligence reports indicated it carried exactly 12 human soldiers and their equipment. 12 individuals against fleets numbering in the thousands. The human ship ignored all attempts at communication from both Zephyrian and Thrakkery forces, the High Chancellor continued. It proceeded directly to the planet's surface and landed in the contested zone between the 2 armies. What happened next defied everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare. The elite unit squad had emerged from their ship and simply walked toward the Zephyrian forward positions. They carried primitive kinetic weapons and wore basic armor that wouldn't have stopped a Kellen child's toy blaster. Both armies had initially assumed it was some sort of elaborate joke or psychological warfare attempt. The Zephyrians had opened fire first. The footage showed energy beams that could have vaporized a small building, striking the humans directly. The soldiers simply absorbed the impacts, their armor glowing briefly before returning to normal. They continued walking forward without breaking stride. Impossible, breathed Ambassador Vorlak of the Crystalline Hegemony. Those were Class 7 particle beams. Nothing organic should be able to survive direct hits. That's what we thought as well, replied the High Chancellor. The Zephyrian commander ordered a full artillery barrage. Plasma mortars, fusion bombs, gravity wells. Enough firepower to level a mountain. The display showed the bombardment from orbit. The ground around the human squad erupted in explosions that registered on seismic equipment across the continent. When the smoke cleared, 12 figures continued their steady advance through the crater-filled landscape. The Zephyrian forces had panicked. It was understandable, really, for a species that had conquered half the galaxy through technological superiority. The sight of their most powerful weapons proving useless against 12 primitives was psychologically devastating. Entire battalions had broken ranks and fled as the humans approached their lines. But the humans hadn't pursued them. Instead, they had stopped at the abandoned Zephyrian command post and done something that sent shockwaves through both armies. They had broadcast a message on all frequencies. This is Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Initiative Elite Unit 7. The recording played for the Council. The voice was calm, professional, and somehow more terrifying than any war cry. By order of the Galactic Council, hostilities in this system will cease immediately. Any further acts of aggression will be met with appropriate responses. The message had lasted exactly 30 seconds. No threats, no demands for surrender, no grand speeches about the futility of war. Just a simple statement of fact delivered by a human who looked like he was discussing the weather. The Thraccari Dominion had responded first. Their generals, perhaps sensing an opportunity to ally themselves with these mysterious humans, had ordered their forces to stand down. The Zephyrians, however, had interpreted the broadcast as an insult to their honor. The largest Zephyrian fleet in the sector had descended from orbit, ready to obliterate the entire continent if necessary to eliminate the human threat. 300 warships against 12 soldiers. Show them what happened to the fleet, ordered High Chancellor Mordaunt. The new footage came from the Zephyrian fleet's own recording systems. It showed their massive dreadnoughts moving into bombardment formation, their weapons charging to full power. The plan was simple: reduce the entire landmass to molten rock, ensuring nothing could survive. The humans had other ideas. Elite Unit 7 had looked up at the approaching fleet and done something that military tacticians across the galaxy were still trying to understand. Each soldier had removed a small device from their equipment pack, devices that intelligence suggested were nothing more than emergency beacons. They were not emergency beacons. The devices had activated simultaneously, creating what human scientists later described as localized gravity manipulation fields. The Zephyrian ships, despite their advanced inertial dampeners and gravity shielding, had been caught in artificial gravity wells that pulled them inexorably toward the planet's surface. One by one, 300 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy had crashed into the contested zone like meteors. The humans had stood their ground as multi-thousand-ton vessels fell from the sky around them, their small forms somehow untouched by the devastation. The survivors among the Zephyrian crews had expected to be executed or enslaved. Instead, the humans had done something completely unprecedented in galactic warfare. They had provided medical aid. The elite unit soldiers spent the next 18 hours pulling survivors from the wreckage. The High Chancellor continued. They administered first aid, distributed food and water, and established shelters for the wounded. When questioned about their actions, Sergeant Rodriguez stated that unnecessary casualties were to be avoided whenever possible. The footage showed humans carrying injured Zephyrians to safety, their earlier display of overwhelming force seemingly forgotten as they focused on humanitarian efforts. It was a dichotomy that no military analyst could explain. How could the same individuals who had just destroyed an entire fleet show such concern for their enemy's welfare? Word of the incident had spread quickly. Within days, both the Zephyrian Collective and the Thackeray Dominion had issued formal peace treaties. Neither side wanted to risk facing whatever other capabilities the humans might possess. The conflict that had threatened to consume half the galaxy had ended not through superior firepower or diplomatic negotiation, but through the simple presence of 12 humans who had walked across a battlefield and made it clear that the fighting would stop. The question before us now, said High Chancellor Mordaunt, is what to do about this development. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that exceed our understanding of physics, biology, and military science. They possess weapons that appear to be nothing more than simple tools until activated. Their soldiers seem to be immune to conventional weaponry, while simultaneously showing compassion for their enemies. Ambassador Zethkar found his voice again, though it came out as more of a croak. Have we determined how many of these elite units the humans possess? The silence that followed was answer enough. According to our intelligence sources, replied the High Chancellor carefully, the Terran Defense Initiative has classified the exact number of elite units as need-to-know information. However, intercepted communications suggest that Unit 7 was selected for the mission not because they were the best available, but because they were the closest to the conflict zone. The implications of that statement hit the chamber like a physical blow. If Unit 7 was simply the most convenient choice rather than the most capable, how many other units existed? How powerful were they? What other impossible technologies did humanity possess? There's something else, continued the High Chancellor. We've been monitoring human communications since the incident. They refer to the elite units in casual terms, almost dismissively. To them, walking through artillery bombardments and pulling starships from orbit appears to be routine training exercises. Ambassador Quintel's translucent form flickered rapidly with distress. Are you suggesting that what we witnessed was not humanity's full military capability? I'm suggesting, replied the High Chancellor grimly, that we may have severely underestimated this species from the very beginning. The humans joined our council 2 years ago, presenting themselves as a young, peaceful civilization interested in trade and cultural exchange. We assumed their primitive technology and short lifespans made them irrelevant on the galactic stage. But what if that was deliberate? Interrupted Ambassador Klextar of the Hive Mind Collective, his insectoid features clicking with agitation. What if the humans intentionally downplayed their capabilities while studying our military doctrines and weaknesses? The chamber erupted in nervous chatter as representatives considered the possibility. Had humanity been playing a longer game than anyone realized? Were they quietly analyzing galactic politics while preparing for some unknown objective? High Chancellor Mordaunt raised her primary arms for silence. There's one more piece of information you need to see. This footage was obtained from a deep space monitoring station near the Sol system, approximately 1 month before the Kepler 442b incident. The holographic display showed the darkness of space near Earth's solar system. At first, nothing seemed unusual. Then, the enhancement filters revealed something that made the assembled representatives gasp in unison. Ships, hundreds of them, possibly thousands, hanging motionless in the void between planets. They were unlike anything in the galactic databases, their design suggesting technology far beyond current understanding. Sleek, organic curves combined with geometric precision to create vessels that seemed to bend light around them. Human vessels, the High Chancellor confirmed, hidden in plain sight using some form of advanced cloaking technology. Our analysts estimate that this fleet alone could match the combined naval forces of 50 major civilizations. But that's impossible, protested Ambassador Zethkar. Our intelligence reports show the humans have fewer than 1,000 starships, all of them primitive chemical propulsion craft. Our intelligence was wrong, replied the High Chancellor. The humans have been showing us exactly what they wanted us to see while keeping their true capabilities hidden. The ships in this footage don't appear in any human registry. They don't match any known human design patterns. Yet they're clearly under human control. The revelation sent shock waves through the chamber. If humanity possessed a secret fleet of this magnitude, what else were they hiding? How long had they been planning? What was their ultimate goal? The question we must ask ourselves, continued the High Chancellor, is whether humanity represents a threat to galactic stability. They have demonstrated the ability to end conflicts through overwhelming force. yet they show restraint and compassion toward their enemies. They possess technology that makes our most advanced weapons useless, yet they present themselves as peaceful explorers. Perhaps, suggested Ambassador Chindiare of the Pacifist Alliance, they genuinely wish to maintain peace. Their actions on Kepler 442b prevented a war that could have killed billions. Or perhaps, countered Ambassador Zethkar, they were testing their capabilities while positioning themselves as saviors. Nothing builds trust like stopping a war, especially one you have the power to control. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Some species argued for immediate confrontation, demanding that humanity explain their deception and reveal their full capabilities. Others suggested caution, pointing out that any species capable of hiding such advanced technology from galactic intelligence services might not react well to ultimatums. In the end, it was Ambassador Vorlak who proposed a solution that would define humanity's relationship with the galaxy for years to come. "We need more information," he stated simply. "If the humans are as advanced as this evidence suggests, then direct confrontation would be suicidal. But we cannot simply ignore the fact that they have been deceiving us. I propose we create a joint intelligence task force to study human capabilities and intentions. And if we discover that humanity poses a threat," asked Ambassador Quintel. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken implications. Every representative in the chamber understood the reality of their situation. If humanity truly possessed the technology and military might that the evidence suggested, then the rest of the galaxy was living at their sufferance. The humans had named their soldiers elite units, a term that suggested special forces or advanced warriors. But as the Galactic Council was beginning to understand, the name might be more literal than anyone had realized. These weren't just elite soldiers within human society. They might represent something far more significant. They might be the reason why humanity had remained hidden for so long, quietly building their strength while studying galactic civilization. They might be the advance guard of a species that had been preparing for contact since before the current galactic age began. Most terrifying of all, they might be exactly what their name implied, the elite of humanity, the best they had to offer. And if that was true, then the galaxy was about to discover just how much they had underestimated their newest members. The session ended with more questions than answers, but one thing was clear to every representative present. The age of casual dismissal of humanity was over. The small blue world on the galaxy's rim was no longer a curiosity or a joke. It was now the single most important and potentially dangerous planet in known space. 3 weeks after the emergency council session, Ambassador Zethkar found himself aboard a heavily armed diplomatic vessel approaching the Sol system. The Joint Intelligence Task Force had been assembled with unprecedented speed, drawing representatives from 12 major civilizations. Each member brought their species' most advanced sensor technology and intelligence-gathering capabilities. None of them felt prepared for what they might find. The task force flagship, a massive Velconian dreadnought called the Truth Seeker, bristled with scanning equipment that could analyze a planet's composition from 3 light-years away. Accompanying vessels from the crystalline hegemony, the Ethereal Consortium, and 9 other major powers have been modified specifically for this mission. Their combined sensor arrays could theoretically detect a hidden fleet anywhere within a star system. "Entering the outer edge of the Sol system now," announced Captain Veltar from the bridge. "All scanning arrays are active. If the humans are hiding anything, we'll find it." Ambassador Zethkar studied the main display as it populated with data. The Sol system appeared exactly as their previous intelligence had indicated. 9 planets orbiting a yellow star, with the 3rd planet showing clear signs of industrial civilization. Primitive space stations orbited several worlds. Chemical propulsion cargo haulers moved between planets at speeds that would have been impressive 1,000 years ago. "Sir," called out the sensor operator, her voice tight with confusion. "I'm detecting exactly what our intelligence files indicated. Approximately 800 human vessels, all using chemical propulsion systems. No sign of the hidden fleet from our surveillance footage." "Impossible," muttered Ambassador Foelaka. His crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "Expand the search parameters. They must be using some form of advanced cloaking technology." Hours passed as the task force's sensors probed every corner of the system. They examined asteroid fields for hidden bases, scanned empty space for gravitational anomalies, and analyzed the cosmic background radiation for any signs of concealed technology. The results were consistently disappointing. The Sol system contained exactly what it appeared to contain: a young civilization barely beyond their homeworld, using technology that belonged in a galactic museum. "This makes no sense," said Ambassador Chindiare privately to Zethkar, as they reviewed the data for the 15th time. "We have footage of ships that clearly surpass our technology. We have documentation of military capabilities that defy physics as we understand it. Yet all we're seeing here are primitive rockets and chemical thrusters." Before Zethkar could respond, their communications array activated. A transmission was incoming from the third planet, Earth. "Unknown vessels. This is Earth traffic control," said a pleasant human voice. "You are approaching restricted space without proper clearance. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions." The casualness of the greeting was somehow more unnerving than any military challenge would have been. The humans were treating the arrival of 12 heavily armed warships as a routine traffic violation. "This is Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council Joint Intelligence Task Force," he replied carefully. "We request permission to enter Earth space for diplomatic discussions." There was a pause that lasted exactly 12 seconds. Later analysis would reveal this delay was precisely how long it took for the transmission to reach Earth at light speed, suggesting the humans had responded immediately without any need for consultation or decision-making. "Permission granted, Ambassador. Please proceed to orbital coordinates being transmitted now. A diplomatic escort will meet you there. Welcome to the Sol system." The simplicity of it was almost insulting. The most powerful intelligence-gathering force in galactic history had just been treated like tourists asking for directions. "Sir," announced the sensor operator, "I'm detecting 3 small craft approaching our position. They appear to be launching from the third planet." The main display showed 3 tiny vessels accelerating toward the task force fleet. According to the sensor readings, each craft was roughly the size of a personal transport and carried a crew of 2. They were traveling at speeds that, while impressive for chemical propulsion, were laughably slow by galactic standards. "Those are the escorts?" asked Ambassador Quintel incredulously. 3 tiny ships to guide 12 dreadnoughts. "Apparently," replied Captain Veltar. "Should we maintain defensive positions?" Before anyone could answer, one of the escort ships opened a communication channel. "Task Force vessels. This is Commander Sarah Mitchell of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. I'll be your primary contact during your visit. Please follow my lead ship and maintain current speeds. Estimated travel time to Earth orbit is 47 minutes. Commander Mitchell's voice was warm and professional, as if she routinely guided fleets of alien warships through her home system. More disturbing was the fact that she had addressed them by name without being given that information. The journey to Earth provided the task force with their first real surprise. As they approached the inner system, their sensors began detecting anomalies that hadn't been visible from the outer edge. Space around Earth wasn't empty. It was filled with activity that somehow remained invisible to their scanning equipment. "I'm reading gravitational fluctuations consistent with large mass movements," reported the sensor operator. "But I can't get a visual fix on anything causing them." "There," pointed Ambassador Vorlak at the main display. "Did you see that? Something just occluded a background star for approximately 0.3 seconds. Captain Veltar enhanced the display and ran the footage in slow motion. For just a moment, the star field flickered as something massive moved between them and distant stellar objects. Whatever it was, their sensors couldn't detect it directly, but its gravitational signature was unmistakable. "How are they doing this?" whispered Ambassador Chindiare. "Our sensor arrays can detect individual molecules at this range. Nothing should be able to hide from us." Commander Mitchell's voice came through the communication system again. "I notice your sensor arrays are quite active. You're welcome to run whatever scans you need, but I should mention that our defensive systems are designed to remain invisible to most scanning technologies. It's nothing personal, just standard security protocols." The casual admission that Earth possessed defensive systems invisible to the galaxy's most advanced sensors sent a chill through the task force. How many ships were out there? How powerful were they? Most importantly, how long had humanity been watching galactic civilization with technology that made their own capabilities look primitive? "Commander Mitchell," said Ambassador Zethkar carefully, We're reading some unusual gravitational signatures in your system. Are you conducting any military exercises? Oh, that's just regular patrol activity, replied Mitchell with the same casual tone she might use to discuss weather patterns. We maintain a standard defensive perimeter around Earth. Nothing that should interfere with your visit. A standard defensive perimeter that was completely invisible to galactic sensors. The implications were staggering. As they approached Earth orbit, the task force got their first clear look at humanity's homeworld. It was indeed a small blue planet, covered mostly in water with green and brown continents visible beneath swirling white clouds. Beautiful but unremarkable by galactic standards. The orbital infrastructure, however, was anything but primitive. Those aren't in our intelligence files, said Ambassador Vorlak quietly. Massive structures hung in perfect geosynchronous orbits around Earth. Their design unlike anything in the galactic databases. They appear to be constructed from materials that bent light in impossible ways, making them difficult to focus on despite their enormous size. Energy readings from the structures registered off the scale of their instruments. Space elevators, explained Commander Mitchell, noticing their interest. We use them for efficient cargo transport to and from the surface. Much more economical than chemical rockets for routine operations. Space elevators. The galaxy's most advanced civilizations had theoretical designs for such structures, but the engineering challenges had always proven insurmountable. The materials required didn't exist, the energy costs were prohibitive, and the gravitational stresses would tear apart anything they could build. Yet humanity had apparently solved these problems so thoroughly that they treated the structures as routine cargo handling equipment. Commander, said Ambassador Chinare, our scans indicate those structures extend far beyond what should be possible for any known material. How do you maintain structural integrity? Trade secrets, I'm afraid, replied Mitchell cheerfully. But I can tell you they've been in operation for over 50 years without a single structural failure. Very reliable technology. 50 years. The humans had possessed this technology for 50 years, since before they had achieved faster-than-light travel according to galactic records. They had been quietly developing impossible engineering solutions while the rest of the galaxy assumed they were struggling to reach their own moon. The designated meeting coordinates led them to what appeared to be a simple space station. Compared to the massive space elevators, it looked almost primitive. A basic cylindrical structure with docking ports and communication arrays, the kind of utilitarian design that young civilizations typically built. That's our diplomatic facility, explained Mitchell as they approached. It's specifically designed to accommodate various atmospheric and gravitational requirements for visiting species. You should find it quite comfortable. As the task force vessels docked, Ambassador Zethkar noticed something that made his scales prickle with unease. The docking process had been seamless, despite the fact that their ships used completely different technological standards than anything humans should possess. The station's docking clamps had automatically adjusted to accommodate Velconian, crystalline, and ethereal vessel design simultaneously. How did the humans know the exact specifications for 12 different species docking systems? The station's interior was even more unsettling. As the diplomatic party moved through the corridors, they found meeting rooms configured for each species' specific environmental needs. The lighting, atmosphere, gravity, and even the furniture had been precisely calibrated for their comfort. The attention to detail was impressive, but the knowledge required to achieve such precision was deeply concerning. How did you know we were coming? Asked Ambassador Vorlak as they settled into the main conference room. Commander Mitchell, who turned out to be a middle-aged woman with graying hair and laugh lines around her eyes, smiled as if the question was exactly what she had expected. We've been monitoring galactic communications since the Kepler 442b incident, she replied simply. When the Galactic Council formed a joint intelligence task force specifically to investigate humanity, we assumed you'd want to visit our home system eventually. We've been preparing for this meeting since your ships left Council space. The casualness with which she admitted to monitoring galactic communications was breathtaking. The galaxy's most secure communication networks, protected by quantum encryption and maintained by civilizations thousands of years more advanced than humanity, were apparently no more secure than children's toys to human technology. You've been spying on us, stated Ambassador Zethkar flatly. We prefer the term maintaining situational awareness, replied Mitchell with the same friendly smile. But yes, we've been keeping track of galactic political developments. It seemed prudent given that we're the newest members of the council. For how long? Mitchell's smile widened slightly. Since before we made first contact with galactic civilization. The admission hit the room like a physical blow. Every representative present understood the implications. Humanity had been watching galactic civilization for years, possibly decades, before revealing themselves. They had studied galactic politics, military capabilities, and technological developments while remaining completely hidden. "You've been preparing," said Ambassador Chindiare quietly. "We're a cautious species," replied Mitchell. "When you're young and relatively weak, it pays to understand your environment before making yourself known. We wanted to ensure we could contribute positively to galactic civilization." Contribute positively, repeated Ambassador Zitkar. "Is that what you call deploying elite units to end the Kepler 442b conflict?" Mitchell's expression grew more serious. That conflict was spiraling out of control. Our projections indicated a 73% probability of escalation into a galaxy-wide war within 6 standard months. The elite unit deployment prevented approximately 2.8 billion casualties and preserved the infrastructure of 14 inhabited systems. "Your projections," said Ambassador Vorlak slowly. "You modeled the entire conflict." "Of course," replied Mitchell as if it were obvious. "We model all significant galactic conflicts. How else would we know when and how to intervene effectively?" The scope of what she was describing was staggering. Accurate modeling of galactic-scale political and military situations required computational resources beyond anything known to exist. The processing power needed to track and analyze the actions of hundreds of civilizations across thousands of star systems would dwarf the combined computer networks of the major galactic powers. Yet Mitchell spoke about it as a routine activity. "How many conflicts have you modeled?" asked Ambassador Chindiare. "All of them," replied Mitchell simply. "We've been running predictive models on galactic stability for the past 18 years. The Kepler 442b situation was simply the first time our projections indicated that intervention was necessary." "The first time," repeated Ambassador Zethkar. "Are you suggesting there will be others?" Mitchell's smile returned, but it no longer seemed friendly. It seemed almost pitying. "Ambassador, in the next 5 years, our models predict 17 potential conflicts that could escalate into sector-wide wars. 3 of those have the potential to damage galactic civilization beyond repair. We're prepared to intervene in any situation where the cost of action is lower than the cost of inaction." The conference room fell silent as the representatives absorbed this information. Humanity wasn't just hiding advanced technology or maintaining secret fleets. They were actively managing galactic stability through predictive modeling and selective intervention. They had appointed themselves as the secret guardians of galactic civilization. "Who gave you the right?" demanded Ambassador Zethkar, his vertical pupils dilating with anger. Mitchell's expression didn't change. "The same authority that gave the Galactic Council the right to mediate disputes between civilizations. The difference is that we actually have the capability to prevent wars rather than just react to them. You're talking about controlling galactic politics. We're talking about preventing unnecessary suffering," replied Mitchell calmly. "The Galactic Council is an excellent forum for discussion and cultural exchange, but its track record on conflict prevention is rather poor. In the past century, Council mediation has failed to prevent 47 major wars. Those conflicts resulted in over 30 billion casualties and the complete destruction of 6 inhabited worlds." The statistics hung in the air like an accusation. Every representative present knew she was right. The Galactic Council's diplomatic processes were slow, cumbersome, and often ineffective when faced with determined aggressors or deeply rooted conflicts. "And you believe you can do better?" asked Ambassador Quintel. "We know we can do better," replied Mitchell. "The elite unit deployment at Kepler 442b prevented a conflict that our models predicted would have resulted in 2.8 billion casualties. Total casualties from the intervention were fewer than 3,000, all from accident and equipment failure rather than deliberate violence. I would call that a significant improvement over traditional galactic conflict resolution methods." Ambassador Vorlak's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. "You're describing a shadow government operating behind the Galactic Council's authority." "We're describing a species that takes its responsibilities seriously," replied Mitchell. "Humanity has the technological capability to prevent galactic wars. That capability comes with certain moral obligations. And if the galaxy doesn't want your intervention, Mitchell's smile disappeared entirely. Then, the galaxy is free to prove it can maintain peace without our help. But our projections suggest that's unlikely. The meeting continued for several more hours, but the fundamental dynamic had been established. Humanity possessed overwhelming technological superiority, predictive capabilities that bordered on prescience, and the willingness to use both in service of what they perceived as the greater good. They've been watching galactic civilization for years, quietly building their capabilities while studying potential intervention scenarios. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that they could act with impunity when they chose to do so. The elite units were just the visible manifestation of capabilities that ran far deeper than anyone had imagined. As the diplomatic party prepared to leave Earth, Ambassador Zethkar found himself staring out at the space elevators that disappeared into the distance above and below the station. Humanity had solved engineering problems that defeated civilizations thousands of years older. They possessed sensor technology that made the galaxy's most advanced equipment look primitive. They commanded fleets that remained invisible to detection while maintaining perfect awareness of galactic political developments. Yet they had chosen to reveal themselves gradually, carefully building relationships and establishing trust before demonstrating their true capabilities. The elite units weren't just superior soldiers. They were a message, a demonstration of power delivered with surgical precision to achieve maximum psychological impact. The humans had named them elite units because they wanted the galaxy to hope they would never need to appear again. But as the task force departed Earth space, every representative understood that hope was no longer realistic. Humanity was now actively managing galactic stability, and they had the power to enforce their decisions whether the rest of the galaxy agreed or not. The Crimson Nebula had always been considered the galaxy's most dangerous region. Dense clouds of ionized gas interfered with sensors and navigation systems, while gravitational anomalies from a collapsed star cluster made faster-than-light travel treacherous. It was the perfect place for pirates, raiders, and other criminals to hide from galactic law enforcement. It was also where the Scorvan Empire had chosen to establish their secret weapons facility. Ambassador Zethkar studied the intelligence reports in his private quarters aboard the Truth Seeker as it traveled back to Council space. 2 months had passed since their visit to Earth, and the galaxy had not remained peaceful. 3 separate conflicts had erupted exactly as Commander Mitchell's models had predicted, each one contained by mysterious interventions that bore the hallmarks of human elite units. But the Scorvan situation was different. The Scorvan Empire was one of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, a collection of feudal houses that had spent millennia perfecting the art of warfare. Their military technology was considered second only to the ancient precursor artifacts that occasionally surfaced in archaeological expeditions. More importantly, they had always operated within the bounds of galactic law, maintaining their aggressive expansion through technically legal conquest and colonization. Until now, the reconnaissance data is conclusive, announced High Chancellor Mordun during the Emergency Council session. The Scorvan are developing biological weapons in the Crimson Nebula facility, weapons specifically designed to target the genetic structures of 17 different galactic species. The holographic displays showed footage obtained at enormous cost by ethereal consortium stealth ships. Deep within the nebula, protected by layers of sensor interference and gravitational distortion, lay a massive research complex. The facility's energy signature was off the scale, suggesting experiments that pushed the boundaries of known science. Biological warfare has been banned by galactic treaty for over 2,000 years, said Ambassador Quintel, her translucent form flickering with distress. The Scorvans signed those agreements. The Scorvan have apparently decided that galactic law no longer applies to them, replied the High Chancellor grimly. Intelligence suggests they're preparing to deploy these weapons against the Theridian Republic within the next standard month. If successful, they'll have demonstrated the effectiveness of biological warfare against a spacefaring civilization for the first time in galactic history. The implications were staggering. The Theridian Republic represented nearly 4 billion individuals across 37 worlds. If the Scorvans successfully deployed targeted biological weapons against them, it would not only constitute the largest act of genocide in recorded history, but also prove that such weapons could overcome modern medical and defensive technologies. What does our military assessment suggest for a conventional response? Asked Ambassador Vorlak. The silence that followed was answer enough. The Crimson Nebula's natural defenses made large-scale military operations nearly impossible. The sensor interference that hid the Scorvin facility would also blind any attacking force, while the gravitational anomalies would tear apart conventional fleet formations. Even if they could mount a successful assault, the time required to organize and deploy sufficient forces would allow the Scorvin to complete their weapon deployment. There is one option, said Ambassador Chindare quietly. We could request human intervention. The suggestion sent a wave of uncomfortable silence through the chamber. None of the representatives were eager to admit their dependence on humanity's mysterious capabilities, but the alternative was watching for billions sentients die from biological weapons. The humans have made it clear they will intervene when necessary, continued Chindiare. This situation clearly meets their criteria for action. And if they refuse? Asked Ambassador Zefkar. If they decide the cost is too high or the risks too great? Before anyone could answer, the chamber's communication systems activated. A transmission was incoming from Earth. Galactic Council, this is Commander Sarah Mitchell of the Terran Diplomatic Corps. We've been monitoring the situation in the Crimson Nebula and believe we can offer assistance. The casual way she announced their awareness of classified intelligence discussions sent another chill through the chamber. The humans weren't just monitoring public galactic communications. They apparently had real-time access to the Council's most secure deliberations. Commander Mitchell, replied High Chancellor Mordun carefully. We were just discussing the Scorvin biological weapons threat. What kind of assistance can humanity offer? Elite Unit 12 is currently positioned 3 light-years from the Crimson Nebula, replied Mitchell without hesitation. They can infiltrate the facility, disable the weapons production, and extract evidence of Scorvin violations of galactic law. Estimated mission duration is 18 hours. The speed of the response was almost insulting. Humanity hadn't needed time to assess the situation or debate potential responses. They already had forces in position and a complete operational plan ready for deployment. How did you know about the facility? Demanded Ambassador Zefkar. We've been monitoring Scorvin military activities for the past 6 months, replied Mitchell. When they began constructing research facilities in the Crimson Nebula, we classified them as a potential threat to galactic stability and began preparation for intervention scenarios. You've been planning to invade Scorvin space? We've been planning to prevent biological warfare, corrected Mitchell. The Scorvin facility represents an existential threat to multiple galactic species. Our projections indicate a 94% probability that successful deployment of their weapons would lead to an arms race in biological warfare that could destabilize galactic civilization within a decade. Once again, humanity's predictive modeling had identified consequences that escaped the galaxy's traditional analysis. The immediate threat was the attack on the Theridian Republic, but the long-term implications were far worse. If the Scorvin proved that biological warfare was effective, other civilizations would rush to develop their own programs. The result would be a galaxy-wide arms race and the most terrible weapons imaginable. What do you need from us? Asked High Chancellor Mordun. Nothing, replied Mitchell. Elite Unit 12 has full authorization to proceed with the mission. We're informing you as a courtesy and to ensure you're prepared to handle the diplomatic fallout when we present evidence of Scorvin violations to the Council. The fact that they were asking for nothing was somehow more disturbing than any demand would have been. Humanity was prepared to act unilaterally, with or without galactic approval, to eliminate what they perceived as a threat to galactic stability. Commander, said Ambassador Quintel, the Scorvin Empire has one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. The Crimson Nebula facility is heavily defended. How can a single unit possibly succeed where an entire fleet might fail? Mitchell's voice carried a hint of amusement when she replied. Ambassador, you've seen what Elite Unit 7 accomplished at Kepler 442b. Unit 12 is equipped for a very different type of mission, but they're no less capable. Before anyone could ask for clarification, the transmission ended. Humanity had informed them of their intentions and was proceeding regardless of galactic opinion. 3 hours later, long-range sensors detected a small human vessel entering the Crimson Nebula. It was alone, moving at sublight speeds through the dangerous gravitational fields that had claimed dozens of ships over the centuries. The vessel's energy signature was so minimal that it barely registered on detection equipment. Then it vanished. Where did it go? Demanded Ambassador Zethkar as he studied the sensor displays aboard the Truth Seeker, which had been repositioned to monitor the situation. Unknown, sir, replied the sensor operator. The ship simply disappeared from our tracking systems. It didn't explode or crash. It just stopped existing as far as our sensors can determine. The implications were disturbing. Human stealth technology had progressed beyond simply being invisible to sensors. Their ships could apparently cease to exist in any detectable form while continuing to operate normally. Hours passed with no word from the infiltration mission. The galaxy's representatives waited anxiously for some sign of success or failure, knowing that billions of lives hung in the balance. The Theridian Republic had been quietly evacuating their most vulnerable populations, but there was no way to protect entire worlds from biological weapons designed to target specific genetic markers. Then, the Scorvin facility's communication systems activated. The transmission that emerged from the Crimson Nebula was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every intelligence service in the galaxy would receive it. The message was simple, delivered in accented Standard Galactic by someone who was clearly not Scorvin. This is Lieutenant Colonel James Harrison of Elite Unit 12. The biological weapons research facility in the Crimson Nebula has been secured. All weapon samples have been destroyed, and research data has been confiscated as evidence of treaty violations. Scorvin personnel are being held for processing by galactic authorities. The facility is ready for inspection by council representatives. The casual tone of the announcement was devastating in its implications. Elite Unit 12 hadn't just infiltrated one of the most heavily defended facilities in the galaxy. They had completely conquered it, eliminated all evidence of biological weapons research, and taken the entire staff prisoner, all without triggering a single alarm or distress signal from the Scorvin defenders. How is that possible? Whispered Ambassador Vorlak. The answer came 12 hours later when the first council inspection ships reached the facility. What they found defied every assumption about modern warfare and defense technology. The Scorvin research complex was intact and fully operational. Every system functioned normally. Every security measure remained active and responsive. The facility's massive defensive installations showed no signs of damage or forced entry. To all appearances, nothing had happened, except that every Scorvin researcher, technician, and security officer in the facility was unconscious. They're not dead, reported the chief medical officer of the inspection team. According to our scans, they're in some sort of induced hibernation state. All biological functions are normal, but they appear to be experiencing accelerated sleep cycles. Our estimates suggest they've been unconscious for approximately 6 hours. What about the weapons research? Asked High Chancellor Mordaunt. Completely destroyed, replied the inspection team leader. Every sample, every culture, every piece of biological material related to the weapons program has been eliminated at the molecular level. The destruction was so precise that it left the rest of the facility's research projects completely undamaged. The precision required for such an operation was beyond the galaxy's understanding. Somehow, Elite Unit 12 had infiltrated a heavily defended facility, identified and destroyed specific research materials while leaving everything else untouched, and neutralized hundreds of trained security personnel without causing a single casualty. Where is Elite Unit 12 now? Demanded Ambassador Zethkar. Unknown, sir, replied the inspection team leader. There's no sign they were ever here. No footprints, no disturbed equipment, no trace evidence of any kind. If it weren't for the unconscious Scorvin personnel and the destroyed biological weapons, we'd have no proof they ever entered the facility. The investigation that followed revealed details that only deepened the mystery. Security recordings showed normal activity right up until the moment when Scorvin personnel began falling asleep at their posts. There was no visible cause, no sign of gas or other sedative agents, and no evidence of outside interference. The facility's atmospheric systems showed normal readings throughout the entire incident. The biological weapons themselves have been destroyed by a process that left the galaxy's top scientists baffled. The organic material hadn't been burned, dissolved, or otherwise chemically altered. It had simply ceased to exist, leaving behind empty storage containers and confused research notes. Whatever technology the humans had used to eliminate the weapons was beyond current galactic understanding. Most disturbing of all was the evidence that Elite Unit 12 had possessed detailed knowledge of the facility's layout, security systems, and research projects before beginning their mission. They had moved through the complex with perfect efficiency, never wasting time on incorrect corridors or empty laboratories. Their knowledge of Scorvan biological weapons research was comprehensive enough to identify and destroy every relevant sample without touching unrelated projects. "How long have they been watching us?" asked Ambassador Chindiare as the Council reviewed the inspection reports. The question hung unanswered in the chamber. Humanity's demonstration of capability at the Scorvan facility suggested surveillance and intelligence gathering on a scale that made the galaxy's most advanced spy networks look primitive. They possessed real-time information about classified military research conducted in secret facilities hidden behind natural barriers that defeated conventional sensors. They also possessed operational capabilities that rendered the galaxy's most sophisticated defenses useless. Elite Unit 12 had treated the Scorvan facility like an unguarded laboratory, walking through security systems that had cost billions of credits to develop and implement. The political ramifications were immediate. The Scorvan Empire, faced with irrefutable evidence of their treaty violations and the complete failure of their supposedly impregnable defenses, offered immediate and unconditional surrender to galactic jurisdiction. They agreed to dismantle all biological weapons research, submit to unlimited inspections, and pay reparations to the Theridian Republic. They had no choice. If humanity could eliminate their most secret and heavily defended research facility without triggering a single alarm, what could they do to Scorvan homeworlds? But the larger implications went far beyond one empire's capitulation. Every military power in the galaxy now understood that their most sophisticated defenses were useless against human capabilities. Their most secret facilities were transparent to human surveillance. Their most carefully guarded research projects were vulnerable to human intervention. Humanity had demonstrated that they could act anywhere in the galaxy, at any time, against any target, with complete impunity. They possessed technology that made the galaxy's most advanced civilizations look like primitive tribes armed with pointed sticks. "The question," said High Chancellor Mordun during the closed session that followed the Scorvan incident, "is what humanity wants." "They've told us what they want," replied Ambassador Quintel. "Galactic stability, prevention of unnecessary conflicts. They've been remarkably consistent in their stated objectives." "But what are their real objectives?" pressed the High Chancellor. "Species don't develop capabilities like this without long-term goals that go beyond peacekeeping." The answer came sooner than expected. Commander Mitchell's next transmission arrived 48 hours after the Scorvan incident. This time, she didn't wait for the Council to contact Earth. The message was broadcast directly to every member world simultaneously, ensuring that no government could control or filter the information. "Representatives of galactic civilization," she began, "humanity believes it's time for a more honest conversation about the galaxy's future. The recent events at Kepler 442b and in the Crimson Nebula have demonstrated that traditional approaches to galactic governance are insufficient to prevent catastrophic conflicts. We propose a new framework for galactic stability. Humanity will assume responsibility for monitoring and preventing conflicts that threaten to escalate beyond regional significance. In exchange, we request formal recognition of this role by the Galactic Council and the establishment of joint committees to improve coordination between human capabilities and galactic diplomatic processes." The proposal was delivered with the same casual confidence that had characterized all human communications, but its implications were revolutionary. Humanity was requesting formal authority to act as the galaxy's police force, with the power to intervene in any conflict they deemed threatening to overall stability. "We understand this represents a significant change in galactic governance," continued Mitchell. "However, our models indicate that traditional diplomatic approaches have a 73% probability of failing to prevent galactic-scale warfare within the next century. Human intervention capabilities can reduce that probability to less than 2%. We're not seeking to control galactic civilization. We're offering to protect it. The choice is yours, but we'll continue to act as we see fit regardless of formal recognition. We simply believe that cooperation is more efficient than operating in isolation." The transmission ended with coordinates for a diplomatic meeting and a timeline for response. Humanity was giving the galaxy 1 month to decide whether they wanted to formalize the arrangement or continue pretending that human interventions were isolated incidents. As the representatives absorbed this ultimatum disguised as an offer, one thing became clear. The age of traditional galactic governance was ending. Humanity had revealed capabilities that made them the dominant force in the galaxy, and they were now demanding recognition of that reality. The galaxy could accept human guardianship willingly or have it imposed unilaterally. But, one way or another, the humans with their elite units were taking control. The Assembly of Dissent had been growing for weeks. What started as quiet conversations in diplomatic corridors had evolved into a formal coalition of 12 major civilizations united by a single principle. The galaxy would not bow to human dominance without a fight. Ambassador Zeth Kar stood before the assembled representatives in a secure conference facility deep in Velconian space. The location had been chosen specifically for its isolation and defensive capabilities, surrounded by sensor networks that could detect approaching ships from several light-years away. If humanity was monitoring galactic communications as thoroughly as they suspected, at least this conversation would remain private. "The situation is clear," Zeth Kar addressed the gathering. "Humanity has presented us with an ultimatum disguised as cooperation. Submit to their authority or face unilateral intervention whenever they decide it's necessary." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The representatives came from civilizations that had spent millennia building their own power and independence. The idea of submitting to the authority of a species that had been unknown just 3 years earlier was intolerable to many. "But what can we actually do?" asked Ambassador Krelvex of the Nethys Confederation, his 6 arms gesturing in frustration. "They've demonstrated capabilities that make our most advanced technology look primitive. Their elite units can apparently go anywhere and do anything without being detected or stopped." "That's exactly what they want us to believe," replied General Thakmore of the Dronin Military Alliance. "Every species has limitations. No technology is perfect. We simply need to find their weaknesses and exploit them." The Dronin were among the galaxy's most militaristic species, having spent their entire recorded history perfecting the art of warfare. If anyone could find a way to counter human capabilities, it would be them. "Our analysis of the Kepler 442b and Crimson Nebula incidents suggests several possibilities," continued General Thakmore. "The humans appear to rely heavily on advanced technology rather than overwhelming numbers. Their elite units operate in small groups, suggesting that while individually powerful, they may be vulnerable to coordinated attacks by superior numbers." "You're suggesting we attack them?" asked Ambassador Quintel incredulously. She had been reluctantly drawn into the assembly by concerns about human surveillance. But the idea of open warfare terrified her. "I'm suggesting we test their capabilities under controlled conditions," replied General Thakmore. "If we can determine the limits of their technology, we could develop countermeasures. The key is to force them into a situation where they can't simply disappear or use their stealth capabilities." The plan that emerged from the Assembly's deliberations was elegant in its simplicity. The hegemony of worlds, a collection of resource-rich systems on the galaxy's edge, had been experiencing raids by the nomadic Voss fleet for several months. The conflicts were contained and relatively low-level, exactly the type of situation that wouldn't normally warrant human intervention. However, if the Assembly could artificially escalate the conflict into something that threatened galactic stability, they could force elite units to respond under conditions of their choosing. "The hegemony controls the Arcturus mining complex," explained General Thakmore. "It's the galaxy's largest source of quantum crystals, essential for faster-than-light communication systems. If the Voss fleet appeared to be targeting the complex with weapons of mass destruction, it would represent a clear threat to galactic infrastructure." "You're talking about staging a fake crisis," said Ambassador Chindiare slowly. "We're talking about creating a controlled test environment," corrected General Thakmore. "The hegemony is cooperating with our efforts. They'll simulate an attack on the mining complex using their own forces disguised as Voss ships. When the elite units respond, we'll be ready with sensor arrays, recording equipment, and analysis teams positioned throughout the system." The deception would serve multiple purposes. First, it would provide detailed intelligence on human capabilities under combat conditions. Second, it would test whether elite units could be lured into responding to artificial threats. Most importantly, It would demonstrate to the galaxy that humanity could be manipulated and countered by superior planning and coordination. 3 weeks later, the trap was ready. The Arcturus system buzzed with activity as hegemony forces prepared their elaborate deception. Ships that had been modified to match Voss fleet configurations moved into attack positions around the mining complex. Powerful jammers were activated to simulate the electromagnetic interference that Voss weapons typically generated. Emergency broadcasts from the mining complex painted a picture of imminent destruction from raiders using prohibited antimatter weapons. Hidden throughout the system, the assembly's sensor arrays waited. Advanced detection equipment from 12 different civilizations had been coordinated to provide comprehensive coverage of the entire operational area. Whatever technology the elite units used, something would detect it. The response came faster than expected. "Contact," reported the lead sensor operator from the hidden command ship. "Single vessel approaching the mining complex. Configuration unknown, but energy signature matches previous human ship designs." The assembly representatives watched their displays intently as the human vessel appeared on their screens. It was smaller than expected, roughly equivalent to a heavy fighter craft, and moving at speeds that conventional sensors could barely track. "Are we getting detailed scans?" asked General Thakmore. "Partial readings," replied the operator. "The ship's using some sort of adaptive shielding that's interfering with our sensors, but we're getting enough data to confirm human technology signatures." The ship approached the mining complex without any attempt at stealth or concealment. It broadcast a standard identification signal and requested permission to assist with evacuation procedures. The casual approach suggested that the elite unit aboard had no idea they were walking into a trap. "Activating full sensor arrays now," announced the operator. "If there are other human ships in the area, we should detect them within the next 60 seconds. The hidden sensor networks throughout the Arcturus system came online simultaneously, creating the most comprehensive scanning field ever deployed in galactic history. Quantum resonance detectors, gravitational wave analyzers, exotic matter sensors, and dozens of other advanced systems probed every cubic meter of space within the system. The results were terrifying. "Sir," reported the operator, his voice tight with disbelief, "I'm reading over 300 human vessels within the system. They're everywhere." The main display updated to show the true scope of the human presence. Ships that had been completely invisible to their sensors suddenly appeared on the screens, positioned at key locations throughout the system. Some hung motionless near major installations. Others moved in complex patterns that suggested they had been monitoring the entire operation from the beginning. "How long have they been there?" demanded General Thakmore. "Unknown, sir," replied the operator. "But based on their positioning, I'd estimate they've been in place for at least several hours, possibly days." The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. Humanity had known about the trap from the beginning. They had allowed the deception to proceed while positioning overwhelming force throughout the system. The single ship approaching the mining complex wasn't a response to their fate crisis. It was a message. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "Source is the approaching human vessel." The voice that emerged from the speakers was calm, professional, and deeply unsettling. "Assembly of Descent Command Ship. This is Captain Rebecca Torres of Elite Unit 15. We're aware that this is a training exercise designed to test our capabilities. We appreciate the opportunity to demonstrate our detection and response systems." The casual acknowledgement of their deception sent a chill through the command center. Not only had humanity detected their trap, but they knew about the assembly itself and had identified their supposedly hidden command ship. "We've been monitoring your preparations for the past 3 weeks, continued Captain Torres. "Your coordination between 12 different intelligence services was quite impressive, though your communication security needs work. We intercepted your planning discussions approximately 18 minutes after your first meeting." General Thakmore's tactical display showed the positions of human ships throughout the system. They had been completely surrounded without realizing it. The most sophisticated military operation in galactic history had been turned into a demonstration of human superiority. "However," Torres continued, "we understand your concerns about our capabilities and intentions. In the interest of improved galactic relations, we're prepared to answer some of your questions about elite unit operations." The offer was delivered with the same casual confidence that characterized all human communications, but the undertone was unmistakable. Humanity was offering to educate them because they could afford to reveal their secrets. The assembly's trap had become a classroom. "This is General Thakmore of the Dronin Military Alliance," he replied, struggling to maintain his composure. "What are your terms for this educational exchange?" "No terms," replied Torres. "Consider it a gesture of goodwill. We'll demonstrate some of our capabilities and explain the principles behind our technology. In exchange, we ask that you share your findings with the broader galactic community. Transparency benefits everyone." The demonstration that followed redefined the galaxy's understanding of technological possibility. Elite Unit 15 began with basic stealth capabilities. Their ship flickered in and out of existence on the assembly's sensors, demonstrating complete control over electromagnetic, gravitational, and quantum signatures. Captain Torres explained that human stealth technology operated by manipulating the fundamental constants of physics within localized fields, essentially making their vessels exist in slightly different dimensional phases than normal spacetime. "The principle is similar to the theoretical work your species have done on parallel dimension research," she explained. "The difference is that we've learned to implement it practically. Our ships don't hide from sensors. They temporarily exist in spaces where your sensors can't reach them." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembled scientists and military analysts. Parallel dimension technology had been considered impossible by every major civilization. The energy requirements alone should have been prohibitive, yet humanity was using it routinely for basic stealth operations. "How do you generate sufficient power?" asked Dr. Vexhai, the galaxy's leading expert on dimensional physics. "Controlled microsingularities," replied Torres, as if discussing a simple engineering problem. "Each elite unit ship carries a small artificial black hole that provides virtually unlimited energy. The containment systems are based on gravitational manipulation technology that we developed for our space elevators." The casual mention of artificial black holes as routine power sources left the assembly representatives speechless. Creating and controlling microsingularities was theoretical research that had defeated the galaxy's best physicists for millennia. Humanity was using them as portable batteries. The demonstration continued with displays of human weapons technology. Elite Unit 15 fired a single shot at an abandoned asteroid in the outer system, using what Torres described as a basic plasma lance. The asteroid, roughly the size of a small moon, simply ceased to exist. The plasma lance operates by converting matter directly into energy through controlled antimatter reactions, explained Torres. "It's our standard sidearm for elite unit personnel." "Standard sidearm," repeated General Thakmore in a stunned whisper. "For comparison, our heavy weapon systems can eliminate planetary bodies up to roughly Earth size," continued Torres. "Though we obviously reserve those for extreme circumstances. We've never had to use them in actual combat situations." The implication that humanity possessed weapons capable of destroying entire planets as routine military equipment was almost too much to process. Every civilization in the galaxy spent enormous resources to build orbital bombardment platforms capable of cracking planetary surfaces. Humanity apparently issued planet-killing weapons to individual soldiers as personal equipment. "How many elite units do you have?" asked Ambassador Quintel, her translucent form flickering rapidly with distress. "That information is classified," replied Torres. "But I can tell you that Unit 15 is currently ranked 847th in the active duty roster." The number hit the assembly like a physical blow. If Unit 15, with its impossible technology and planet-destroying weapons, was ranked 847th among active elite units, how many of these super soldiers did humanity possess? How powerful were the units ranked higher? "What about your top-ranked units?" asked General Thakmore. "Elite Unit 1 through Elite Unit 10 are reserved for existential threats to human civilization," replied Torres. "They've never been deployed in a galactic context. We hope they never need to be." The demonstration concluded with a display of human logistics capabilities. Within minutes, supply ships began materializing throughout the Arcturus system, delivering food, medical supplies, and equipment to both the Hegemony mining complex and the Assembly's own hidden vessels. "We noticed your ships have been deployed for several weeks," explained Torres. "Long-duration operations can strain crew morale and supply reserves. Consider this a courtesy resupply." The gesture was simultaneously generous and terrifying. Humanity had provided supplies to forces that had been actively working to undermine them, demonstrating both their logistical capabilities and their confidence in their own superiority. As the supply operation concluded, Captain Torres delivered the final message that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. The Assembly of Dissent has asked important questions about human intentions and capabilities, she said. We hope today's demonstration has provided some answers. Humanity possesses technology that makes us effectively unchallenged in this galaxy. We could impose our will through force if we chose to do so. But we don't choose that path. We prefer cooperation and mutual benefit. The elite units exist to prevent catastrophic conflicts, not to establish human dominance. We want the galaxy to prosper under whatever governmental structure you collectively prefer. However, we will not allow galactic civilization to destroy itself through preventable wars. The choice facing your governments is simple. Work with us to maintain stability, or watch us maintain it without your input. Either way, the galaxy will remain peaceful. The transmission ended, leaving the Assembly representatives to contemplate their complete failure. Not only had they failed to identify human weaknesses or develop effective countermeasures, but they had inadvertently provided humanity with a platform to demonstrate capabilities that dwarfed anything the galaxy had imagined. The secret recordings of the demonstration spread quickly through galactic intelligence networks. Within days, every major government possessed detailed documentation of human technological superiority. The political consequences were immediate and profound. 3 governments formally requested alliance with humanity. 5 others opened negotiations for technology sharing agreements. The remaining major powers began secret discussions about unconditional surrender to human authority. The age of resistance had lasted exactly 3 weeks. The age of acceptance was about to begin, whether the galaxy wanted it or not. Humanity had named their soldiers elite units because they hoped the galaxy would never force them to appear. But now that they had appeared, there could be no question about who truly controlled the fate of galactic civilization. 5 years had passed since the Assembly of Dissent's failed attempt to challenge human authority. The galaxy had settled into what historians would later call the Great Accommodation, a period of unprecedented peace and prosperity under humanity's quiet but absolute guardianship. Ambassador Zethkar stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed Harmony Station, a massive diplomatic complex positioned at the galaxy's gravitational center. The station served as the new seat of galactic government, a joint human council facility where traditional diplomatic processes operated alongside human predictive modeling and intervention capabilities. Through the transparent aluminum viewports, he could see the incredible sight that had become routine over the past few years. Human cargo vessels moved in endless streams between star systems, their holds filled with advanced technology, medical supplies, and educational materials. The ships appeared and disappeared using the same dimensional phase technology that elite units employed, making faster-than-light travel as simple as stepping through a doorway. "Remarkable, isn't it?" said a familiar voice behind him. Zethkar turned to see Commander Sarah Mitchell approaching, her expression carrying the same friendly professionalism that had characterized all their interactions over the years. She looked no older than she had during their first meeting, another reminder of humanity's apparently effortless mastery over biological processes. "The transformation has been comprehensive," Zethkar replied carefully. That was certainly true. The galaxy had changed more in 5 years under human guidance than in the previous 5 centuries of independent development. Poverty had been virtually eliminated as human replication technology made basic necessities freely available to any civilization that requested them. Disease had become a historical curiosity as human medical knowledge provided cures for conditions that had plagued species for millennia. Even death itself had become negotiable, with human life extension technology offering immortality to any individual who chose to accept it. "But you're not entirely comfortable with the changes," observed Mitchell with that unsettling perceptiveness that marked all human interactions. "My species values independence," replied Zethkar. "We've always prided ourselves on solving our own problems and determining our own fate. Now, every major decision requires human approval. Every significant project operates with human oversight, and every crisis is resolved by human intervention." "I understand your concerns," said Mitchell. "But look at the results. Wars have virtually ceased to exist. Famine, disease, and resource scarcity are becoming historical footnotes. Scientific progress has accelerated beyond anything your species achieved independently. Your own people are living longer, healthier, more fulfilling lives than ever before. She gestured toward another section of the observation deck, where representatives from dozens of species worked together on joint projects that would have been impossible just years earlier. Crystalline beings collaborated with energy entities on research that transcended the physical limitations of both species. Former enemies shared knowledge and resources under humanity's gentle but firm guidance. But at what cost? Asked Zethkar. We've become children under human supervision. Our governments exist at your sufferance. Our militaries serve at your pleasure. Even our scientific research requires human approval to ensure it doesn't threaten galactic stability. Would you prefer to return to the old ways? Asked Mitchell quietly. The constant wars, the resource conflicts, the technological stagnation that characterized galactic civilization for millennia? Zethkar didn't answer immediately. The truth was that the old ways had been terrible. The galaxy's history was written in blood, marked by countless wars that had destroyed entire civilizations and consumed trillions of lives. The peace humanity had imposed was genuine and comprehensive, but it came at the price of genuine independence. What happens when you decide we're no longer worth protecting? He asked finally. What happens when human interests diverge from galactic welfare? What safeguards exist against human tyranny? Mitchell's smile was sad, but understanding. Those are exactly the questions we hoped someone would ask. Before Zethkar could respond, she activated a portable communication device. This is Commander Mitchell. Please inform Director Chun that Ambassador Zethkar is ready for the next phase briefing. Next phase? Asked Zethkar. The reason we asked you to meet with us today, replied Mitchell. There's something about humanity's long-term planning that you need to understand. Something we haven't shared with galactic leadership until now. They moved deeper into the station, passing through security checkpoints that scanned them with technology that made the galaxy's most advanced systems look primitive. Finally, they arrived at a chamber that Zethkar had never seen before, despite years of working in the station. The room was vast, filled with holographic displays that showed data from across the galaxy. Star maps indicated human activities in thousands of systems, while complex charts tracked everything from resource distribution to technological development rates. At the center of it all stood a woman Zethkar recognized from diplomatic files, but had never met in person. Director Sarah Chun looked exactly as she had during humanity's first contact with galactic civilization 6 years earlier, another testament to human biological mastery. But her expression carried a weight that suggested responsibilities beyond anything the galaxy had imagined. Ambassador Zethkar, she said, extending her hand in the human gesture of greeting. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I know you have concerns about humanity's role in galactic affairs. I hope what we're about to show you will address some of those concerns. What exactly are you showing me? Asked Zethkar. The truth about why humanity revealed itself to galactic civilization, replied Director Chun, and what we've been preparing for during these years of apparent dominance. The holographic displays around the chamber shifted, showing images that made Zethkar's scales prickle with instinctive fear. Dark regions of space where stars had been systematically extinguished. Worlds that had been stripped down to their component atoms. Entire solar systems that had been converted into geometric structures of unknown purpose. The Harvesters, said Director Chin simply, an ancient machine intelligence that has been systematically consuming galaxies for millions of years. They move slowly by our standards, taking centuries to fully process each galaxy they encounter, but their advance is inexorable. They reached the edge of our galaxy approximately 50 years ago, continued Director Chun. Our deep space monitoring networks detected their scouts probing outer rim systems. We estimate they'll begin full-scale invasion operations within the next 20 to 30 years. The revelation hit Zethkar like a physical blow. Humanity's entire interaction with galactic civilization suddenly took on a completely different context. The technology demonstrations, the peaceful,